2020 has been a challenging year, and it was no different for the Overwatch League. Today, we take a look back on the season to discuss how the league overcame each trial set before them. That's coming up on today's Owl's Nest. Welcome back to our regulars, and hello to any new viewers out there. If this is your first time visiting the Owl's Nest, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video, turn the bell for notifications, and leave us some comments about how much you love the show. So now that the 2020 season is officially over, I want to take a chance to sort of look back on all the challenges that have came, because it definitely feels like we've been through more than just one season, 1 year here, whether it was the homestands, COVID, the online matches, the evolution of the hero pools, and I want to go all the way back and start from the beginning, right? Because it seems like eons ago that we were having the homestands, that it was just, no tournament settings, no hero pools, just jumping into each of these cities and throwing these teams together to see what would happen. So Jake, as someone who got to go to quite a few of the homestands early on, how do you think that they ended up working out, looking back on them now?
Looking back, I mean, it was pretty incredible. Like the fact that they could, pack out these arenas and venues to just people who love watching Overwatch, and just so much energy there and so much passion and excitement for all the teams playing. I think that was pretty special. And honestly, I'm super glad I was able to see that at the start of this year. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully in the future, that returning in some shape or form, continuing to have live events. I think live events, as much as it's nice to, the fact that esports can continue to run during quarantine, it's just huge. It's like, obviously a game changer, and has helped us a ton, obviously, in this moment compared to other traditional sports. But I think it's still like the lifeblood of esports to have live events that bring people together in community and, have that shared space to connect over shared passion and energy. I think those things are, to an extent, irreplaceable. So definitely miss them, but I think they went great at the start of the season, and I'm just happy to see them come back in the future.
Yeah, I think that, looking back, every single one of these seasons, there was something that the critics said, well, this is the make or break for them. The first season, it was just whether or not the franchise model could work. The second season, it was the expansion teams. And going into the third season, they're like, can they do the homestand model? This is the make or break. And I think right from the very beginning, the Overwatch League proved that they could do it. The only one that I got to attend in person was the Houston homestand, which, a little bit of bias shining through here, but to me, that was the best homestand. Up until that point, was also the last homestand. But I think the only question that I had they continued, was obviously, when we changed the tournament format later on, I think that did a lot for the excitement, the narrative, and the stories, behind what was going on in the league. And as you had pointed out, early on, when we had first started doing the Owl's Nest, was one of the reasons that you weren't able to do the tournament format as well as the homestand format, is that the logistics behind travel and where you're sending the teams kind of got in the way of that. So do you think that without the tournament format and just sticking with homestands throughout the entire season, do you think that overall that would have been better, worse, or about the same as what we ended up with the tournament format being hosted online?
Well, I think homestands are great, but as you said, I would really love to see a change in the format so that we can still have tournaments, even with live events. Or that there's still some way to execute that. Because I think having those mid-season tournaments with the high stakes in the shorter term, and we're not like just waiting for playoffs, to me, that is just so critical. Like you just need that in order to continue to keep people's interest, to build hype, and give teams those moments to express themselves regardless of their like overall record. If they're just feeling themselves for a couple of weeks, they can like be rewarded for that, and they can be celebrated for that. And I think that's such a great thing for the league that I don't want to see that go away, regardless of whether there's homestands or not. So maybe it's like a different format or something, or a different way of determining who goes, or maybe you have to wait a little bit longer after qualifying to actually do the tournament, so there's time to do logistics, whatever it may be. I just really hope we continue to see mid-season tournaments. I think that's been massive for us this season, and I think it's like, it doesn't matter quarantine, no quarantine. People love the tournament format, and having micro tournaments that sort of bridge the gap from the long season to playoffs, I think it's just critical. Like, we need to keep having those. They've been huge this year.
Well, and of course, after a few of the homestands, the thing that changed everything was the COVID-19 pandemic. it definitely hit everyone real hard. Obviously, we have sports who are just now starting to start back up, and a lot of the esports that were able to keep operating are now starting to sort of wind down, whether it is the Worlds for League of Legends or now the World Championships for the Overwatch League. Overall, taking a look back, how do you feel that the COVID-19 response was handled? Because obviously, it sent waves and ripples all throughout the season, whether it was some teams having to front load the season with a lot of their matches like the Houston Outlaws, or teams like a lot of the Apex regions who got a lot of weeks off early on as they were trying to figure out logistically how to handle having these matches over in the Asian region.
Well, I think the league did like the best job it could, right? Like I think everyone had, no idea this was going to happen this season, right? There were the contingencies rather in place. It hadn't been done before, and I think that central fact meant that it was always going to be, half measures here and there, just trying to piece things together and keep the league going at all. But if anything, I think the league did a great job redeploying its resources in a way that suits the online format, still running these matches, having stuff like the player cams, like just the little details that add on to the match, make you feel a little bit more connected to what's going on. And then, still like doing things like adding the tournament format to, continue to spice things up despite the online play. So I've honestly been really happy with the league's response to it. They were super proactive and they always put players' health first. And I think regardless of, quote unquote success of the season in terms of like viewership or events or whatever, I think you have to see that as like the right way to do things, to put people's health first and to be extremely cautious with that. Like they shut down the homestands basically as soon as there was any hint of this thing getting really as big as it would be, right? Like as soon as that was a real worry, it was just, game over for homestands. And as much as that sucks, and as much as that is like, no one obviously wanted that to happen, it's the way it had to be to protect everyone involved. And I'm just glad the league had that same mindset of like, that comes first.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you entirely there. I think that, they did the best job that they could. And obviously, as far as I'm aware, it worked. No players, no fans or anything, were... Oh, complete brain fart there. Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. I think that all things considered, the league did the best job that they possibly could. I know that they took, I think, a lot of extra flack. It's really weird when I look back on it and see the hype and the excitement that were behind homestands. And then once COVID hit and we had to start making all these online changes, to sort of different formats, it started to seem like the Overwatch League, because of their detractors, was getting a lot of flack for things that weren't necessarily their fault, but was just the symptoms of reacting to COVID-19. And, there are people who have complained about the fact that, some of the teams, had to front load their season, where a lot of them were played, the Houston Outlaws, for example, had to play a lot of their games earlier on, and, were done with their season a little bit quicker. But as a result, they were maybe stuck in a meta that didn't quite suit them, whereas a lot of the other teams got to play their season in some of their matches, through the hero pools. So I think that there are a lot of people out there that look at the way that it was handled and they find reasons to complain about it, but I don't know that there was really any other way to do it. There was a lot of people that told me throughout the whole thing, why didn't they just shut down the whole league, right? This isn't fair for the teams that are still playing, the teams that have time off. Everything should be shut down. But honestly, I think the league, sort of soldiering their way through was probably the only way to do it. In the middle there was some of the light viewership they were getting before going to the tournament format. I think that they really would have cut their legs out from underneath themselves had at some point they decided suspend all league play completely and then just come back, several months later once everyone could sort of be playing at the same time and under the same conditions.
Yeah, it's just too big of a price to pay at the end of the day, right? And to not utilize the fact that it can be played online. Obviously, it's not ideal. Obviously, it's better to play on LAN for a lot of reasons. But at the end of the day, Overwatch does have pretty good net code. It's not ping advantage isn't the hugest thing in Overwatch compared to other FPS games. So there's reasons, I think, in particular for Overwatch to discount those worries.
So, of course, then finally, one of the biggest changes to the game, which, look, at first, I will admit, I was definitely against the idea of hero pools, but I think that, looking at where we are now, that they have definitely brought, more, I think, variety and more entertainment while still being balanced to the league. But hero pools, their evolution. Jake, overall, what's your thought and your opinions on the way that hero pools were introduced and sort of where we've came with them now?
I think overall, I'm a fan. It wasn't the system that I originally argued for, which is, I wanted like a hero banning drafting system, like that would be match specific. So it'd be part of the match, and teams I would just pick heroes, to ban throughout the course of the match, or throughout for like one map, and then you ban again next map. And I thought that's what the system I was looking for, is something that puts it in the hands of the teams. And I still would defend that system. I would still support that system over hero pools. However, I think hero pools accomplished a lot of what that system was going for, which is just having some more variety on a faster cycle than the patch cycles, which are just too slow for a game like Overwatch in a competitive sense to build variety, because there's a risk of some patches just not really changing anything, and then you're waiting like a month for another patch, and then you realize, oh wow, we just played the same thing for 2 months straight. Everyone's mirror matching for 2 months straight on the same comp, and I just feel like that's a real tragedy in a game like Overwatch that has this massive pool of heroes and all these different strategies you can play. And if one just starts dominating for months, I think that's just not great for the game. And I think that the existence of hero pools has forced teams to like innovate and to try new things, and they've actually found alternative strategies because they have to practice them for a hero pool. Then they find, maybe that's not good overall, but maybe there's this one situation we can continue to deploy it. So I think it's had variety. It's increased variety even outside of the hero pool weeks, where like people will take those hero pool comps and maybe continue to play them in certain niche scenarios going on later on to the season.
That's all that we have for today on the Owl's Nest. Thank you so much for watching. And before you go, if you haven't, make sure you click that bell to subscribe to our channel and get notifications on all the latest videos. And make sure you check out the Owl's Nest award show that we did earlier this week. Now, if you've ever been to a Ren Fair or a Comic-Con, or you've binged every Star Trek season, check out Checkpoint AFK, where we discuss everything in gaming pop culture while you're away from the keyboard. Available here on our YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure, if you guys are following Jake at JakeOW on Twitter and Jake_OW on Twitch and YouTube. And until next time, stay on that payload.